You know, this is story and imagination and telling our pasts and predicting our futures. That's the magic of why we get into this business.
I really wish I would have taken myself seriously as somebody who could make art earlier in my life. I didn't know anybody who made money creatively.
Audiences want to see things that are new. I want to go see a story I've never seen before, and that's what we're betting on.
As you join us today, we encourage you to reflect on the land that you're on and its history. We're located on the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Wendat, and the Haudenosaunee. The territory is within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant and is home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We're grateful to work on this land.
Good morning. Wow, I'm glad to see I'm not the only one who said no to the last reception last evening. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm Tammy Frick, the CEO of the Academy of Canadian Cinema and Television, and I'm so pleased to be here this morning to introduce this next panel at TIFF's Industry Conference. For those of you who might not be familiar, the Canadian Academy's mission is to inspire creativity, to develop talent, and to celebrate the best in Canadian visual storytelling. We produce the Canadian Screen Awards, bringing together the screen-based industry annually to celebrate our country's top talent in film, television, and digital medias. It's my pleasure to introduce this session titled Perspectives, the Future of the Awards Bodies. As the landscape of linear TV evolves, prestigious award shows such as the Oscars, BAFTAs, and the Grammys are redefining success to attract younger audiences and showcase a more international presence. We'll explore how these industry leaders are transforming the broadcast experience to engage new audiences and redefine the future of awards shows in a rapidly changing entertainment landscape. TIFF's programming is made possible by the support of its sponsors and partners. They would like to thank TIFF's festival presenting partner, Rogers, TIFF's major sponsors, RBC and Visa, TIFF's major industry supporters, Ontario Creates and Telefilm Canada, and TIFF's media partner, Screen International, for supporting the Perspectives programs. I'd also like to take a quick moment to thank TIFF for bringing this wonderful, high-caliber conversation to the festival this year. Joining us for this conversation is Bill Kramer, CEO of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, Jane Millichip, CEO of BAFTA, and Harvey Mason Jr., CEO of the Recording Academy and MusiCares. Guiding us through this conversation this morning is Anita Lee, Chief Programming Officer at TIFF. Please join me in welcoming Bill, Jane, Harvey, and Anita to the stage.
Good morning. I know you mostly had a very late night last night, and thank you for coming so bright and early. I know that we will still have people coming in, but we are going to start our session because we've got some very tough questions for our panelists this morning. We decided we're starting our panel this morning with the smartest people in our industry conference. So
where do we go for that?
Okay, so we are covering quite a few questions this morning, but looking really at, the future of awards organizations, new perspectives, perhaps responsibilities, and really trying to have a fulsome conversation about what awards bodies are thinking and doing as they move forward. Okay, so I'm going to start with Jane. Can you tell us a little bit about the impactful initiatives that your organizations deliver that we might not be aware of?
Thank you. So first of all, it's important to know that BAFTA is a charity for the screen arts in the world of film, games and television, and we have members from all three sectors. And we look at both system change and people enablement in that work. Our remit as a charity is really to level the playing field, to provide opportunity for those who might face barriers or bias in pursuit of a career in the screen arts. We have a number of programs that have been running for quite a few years, talent accelerator schemes, such as BAFTA Breakthrough and Elevate. We run a schools and youth program called Young BAFTA. We have outreach programs in schools around the country, in the UK. We also run, and have run for many years, BAFTA Breakthrough in North America, in our branch here. And in the world of system change, that's when we lean into advocacy a little more. So the world of best practice. The BFI diversity standards, for instance, we now put them at the entry of our award system. So if you want to enter into the British categories in our awards, you need to have made your film according to the diversity standards. So that's a really good way that we can use carrot and stick to be more progressive. And also, just before I joined BAFTA, we developed some the anti-bullying and anti-harassment guidelines. So again, if you are a small independent and don't have the resource of big, the big studios and the big corporates in your CSR or ESG work, we can help you out and with that kind of more progressive social practices as well. So there's a really broad sweep of work we do. And in the last year, we've been leaning into what we call in the UK social mobility. That's the inequality that people face as a result of inequalities in socioeconomic background. And we have developed an online resource for hirers to make them more aware of the challenges people might face. Because we find that socio and economic inequality is quite invisible, but it's really profound. So that work is ongoing. No, I'll let Bill and Harvey speak because I'm rabbiting on. So yeah, we do a lot.
I don't want to follow that.
Yes, go ahead, Bill.
Good morning. So the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, there's overlap there, obviously, with what Jane was just speaking about. But we, too, are a nonprofit arts and culture organization. I'll use American IRS codes. We're a 501c6, a membership organization, and a 501c3, which is a nonprofit that's in service to the public. So we do a lot, and people know us, obviously, for the Oscars, but we're so much more than that. We celebrate cinema and the artists who make movies through the Oscars, through our Governor's Awards, our honorary Oscars, and our Science and Technical Awards. This is for technological achievements in movie making. We have the largest film-related collection in the world, 52 million items. We preserve film history. That's a huge part of our mandate. We have the biggest film museum in the world, so we inspire, we curate, we program. We want to inspire new generations of storytellers and artists. And by the way, our collection is global. So in our archive, in our library, this is our global film history. The Academy's been collecting since the late 1920s. And we have specific talent development and education programs designed to inspire and create new filmmakers and to diversify our film industry. So this is the work that we do 365 days a year.
Hey, wonderful. Harvey?
We're very similar in so many ways, and we are also a not-for-profit organization. You know us for the Grammy Awards, but we are doing things, we call it the other 364 days of the year. You see what we do on television. The other things that we're doing are caring for and uplifting music creators. We have an organization within the Academy called MusiCares that generates revenue and services back into the music community, health and human services, drug addiction, if you've had an accident, if you've lost your instrument, MusiCares will step in and support the music community. We feel that's obviously important, being that most of our creators are independent contractors. A lot of them don't have insurance, they don't have the support that they need, so MusiCares provides some of that. During COVID, we provided $40 million plus to our community that needed help through MusiCares, so very important there. We also have education and preservation work, much like the Academy. We have a museum. We do a lot of our education work through that, making sure that the next generation of creators has access to information, instruments, education, teachers. Some of our underserved areas are being provided by work at the Grammy Museum. And we have our advocacy work that is being done both on the state and the federal level, making sure that the interests of music people are being considered in new legislation, especially now, and I know we're talking about a little bit later with the technological advancements, the consumption change, the way people are listening to content, film, and music. There's things that need to be addressed on an advocacy level to make sure that creators are taken care of. So that's some of the work we're doing. Obviously, there's a big DEI component as well. Over the last 4 years, there's been so much change and revisions of how things need to be considered, how things should be looked at. We spend a lot of time working on that. But those are some of the things that we do that I'm really, really proud of. Again, the Grammy Awards are almost the outward-facing portion of that work that allows us to do all the other work. A lot of our funding comes from our television media rights contract, ticket sales, things like that. So when you see the show, that is the representation of our organization, but that also allows us to do the important work that we do. I come from the creative community. I'm a songwriter, I'm a producer, and so I'm very, very passionate about utilizing the resources and the platform of the Academy to make sure that we're supporting and uplifting the entire industry and the community.
You know, it is really eye-awakening to hear all that the awards bodies are doing. You know, your shows are really some of the most significant award shows, and I think everybody here in the room is well aware of the show and the glamour and the stars. I'm sure it's new information for many to actually hear that there's education, advocacy, restoration, etc. So why is it important, and maybe now more than ever, that awards bodies are diversifying your programming and your resources? And maybe, Bill, I can start with you first.
Yeah, no, happy to. And it's so interesting to hear, and we know this, but the similarities between our organizations are award shows define our brand in so many ways, but we do so much more. And I often say this when people ask me about diversification of programming and resources. The Academy sits in two worlds, the film industry and the nonprofit arts and culture sector. Any healthy organization has a diversified stream of support, and with that diversified programming, there have been so many changes to our world, to our film industry, over the last, well, forever, but in the last couple of years, significantly. We are working very hard to bring in a diversified base of support to ensure that all of the work that we do, beyond just the Oscars, is sustainable. So we recently launched a $500 million fundraising campaign with our partners Rolex and Cinecittà in Rome. This was not just about fundraising, but also acknowledging that we're a global organization. We have global audiences, not just for the Oscars, but for our museum, for our preservation work, for our restoration work, for our education work. We're doing that now around the world. And with that comes new audiences, new sources of support. And that helps you pull different levers. If for some reason ticket sales are down 1 year in the museum, you have corporate support or individual donors or foundation support that can help level that out. So we've already come close to raising $200 million at this point, and we just launched this earlier this year. This will take us to our 100th Oscars in 2028. But I think any healthy organization, I know we're all thinking about this, no healthy organization should rely on one source of support. I think that's a given. It's best practices, but we've learned over the last couple of years that things can shift quickly. And when you have reliance on one source of support, you put your organization at risk. So we've been working very hard to really diversify our programming and our sources of support, and so far it's been great.
Wonderful. Jane, did you want to answer that as well?
Yeah, I think it's really important to remain relevant. And to remain relevant, you need to understand the world around you. And awards bodies are part of an ecosystem, and our awards are the moment we have in the year to celebrate excellence and great creative work, but they are part of a much broader piece of work. We need to really see this as a 360. Our mantra at BAFTA is that our awards celebrate all that we stand for, and that embraces all the work we do in levelling up as well. I forgot to mention earlier in my last answer that we're also, BAFTA runs an organisation called BAFTA Albert, and we're actually running, I think it's the world's largest decarbonisation programme in television in the world. And every TV show now commissioned in the UK goes through our decarbonisation programme. And so that environmental work that we do is really, and we're working out a roadmap now for film as well. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot more to do. We have a huge job ahead of us in remaining relevant, in supporting the screen arts. But it's really important for us that every person growing up should feel that a career in the screen arts is feasible for them, and not enough do. And we need to play our part in that, work with the other screen agencies around the world, not double up, work to convene together. And if we infuse our young people with the desire to create, and whether or not they enter the screen arts, they make the world's best audience going forward. So whether they become creators themselves or consumers of it, you know, we're storytellers as humans, and we've got to support that. It's the way we manage the troubles of the world through storytelling. So we play a small part in that, and our awards are very much the shop window for that work. But what sits underneath it is all of that levelling up work and championing of the screen arts.
That's wonderful, wonderful. Harvey, I'm going to move to the next question because I feel like we have a really good sense of all of the strong advocacy work that is happening with all your organizations.
You're probably going to ask a different question, but can I touch on the diversity piece really quick?
Absolutely, yes.
Bill, and I think you guys, Janie, spoke about the diversity of programming and revenue, but there's also a really, really important component here as far as diversity, and that's our memberships. You know, and in order to do any of the things that I think, Bill, you touched on, diversify our revenue, diversify what we present and how we perform, is diversifying who's a part of our organization, both on the membership side and then on the staff side. And I know both of my peers, my colleagues here, have done this work. Jane, you came in and made huge changes to things that were happening. Bill, you've done the same. So the importance of making sure you're having all the voices at the table, all the voices when it comes to voting, all the voices when it comes to submitting, making sure that the right people are in the organization with different perspectives and different ways they approach things and find solutions and respond to issues, really important. Making sure that on the stage, on the show, on what we present, you're seeing different faces, different types of people. Making sure that, as you said, Jane, there's an idea for somebody who's watching the show to see somebody that looks like them, that they can aspire to and can hope to be on one of our stages one day. That diversity is more important than anything, because without that, the revenue's not going to be there. The ability to do the work that all of our organizations do will not be there. So just wanted to make sure we touched on that.
No, that's a very, very important element, and I think it leads us nicely into our next question as well. You know, and I'll start with you, Harvey, and I think you can continue. You know, what lessons have you learned over the last few years that are impacting your organizational priorities moving into the future?
Well, I'll start with a positive. We've learned that music and film and TV and the screen arts is important. We've understood that always, but I think recently more so than ever, the storytelling, the explanation, the showcasing, the opening the aperture of consumers and exposing them to new ideas, to new things. COVID, we saw the consumption of music and film and television go through the roof, as we all know. So I've learned the importance, and we've known that, we've felt that. We understand the responsibility we have as creators to make sure we're telling stories and we're talking about what's next, maybe seeing around the corner, seeing the future. So that's something that we learned, but we also learned there were a lot of issues over the last few years. When I came into this role, just a little bit before, I think I've been 4 years. Bill, how long have you been? 3, 4?
2.5.
So I came in, I guess I was I'm the old guy here.
You're my mentor.
Yeah. So I came in about 4 years ago and quickly learned that a lot had to change. A lot had to change. We could not continue to be stagnant as an organization. Consumers wouldn't stand for it. Creators wouldn't stand for it. Journalists wouldn't stand for it. And I came in at a time, obviously there was some racial unrest. There was COVID. So there was a lot of disruption in what was happening. So I learned that there needs to be, again, to the last question, more diversity. Needs to be more attention paid to doing more listening instead of more talking. We had to make sure that we heard from our community and our constituents. I'm sure that all of our organizations have faced some of the similar challenges, but as far as the Grammys were concerned, we'd been doing a lot of things the same way, and we felt like we knew what we needed to do. And so a time came that we had to change to being really, really receptive, good listeners, make sure we understood some of the issues, and that communication was something that changed pretty quickly. And we also had to make sure that we were being more transparent than we'd ever been before. Just culture now determines or demands that there's a transparency and there's a level of explanation and understanding, both from the community that we serve and represent and also the consumers and the people that cover our awards. So those are some of the things we learned. I learned a heck of a lot in the last 4 years, I can tell you that. It's been a wild time.
You know, absolutely. I've been a member of the Academy since 2016, and, you know, I've really noticed myself just as a member, I feel like how much has changed, you know, just last 5 years, for example. So I'll throw it over to you, Bill, if you want to answer that as well.
Thank you, Academy member. Harvey, you articulated it so beautifully. It starts with our membership. We're ultimately membership organizations. We have esteemed members of our Academy on stage here today. The diversification of our membership, the globalization of our membership, we're living in a global world. Our industries, our global audiences are thinking about movies and music in a very different way. So really paying attention to that, those two indicators, that was something I did not anticipate as I entered this job 2.5 years ago. The change is happening rapidly. We have to be nimble. We're not always nimble as organizations. I mean, I think what's great about Jane and Harvey is that the three of us have unique roles that only we, I think, understand, and we have great conversations and can share concerns and initiatives and ideas, but really thinking about global membership, because that defines how our members are watching movies, how they're voting, who's winning, who's on the stage at the Oscars, and that creates such a ripple effect for everything else we do. So our Academy is spending a lot of time, and I see, you know, Josh, who's a great member of our membership team, does a lot of work on this. He's in the audience with us today. But really thinking about opening up our doors to members in a way that we've not done before. Thinking about different backgrounds, thinking about their work in a global way, really thinking about redefining how we invite people into the Academy. And with that comes new audiences, new programs, and new funding. It's just good business, too.
Yes, and I do, you know, see how as nonprofit organization that, there really is such a strong mission. And more, it's similar for us as a film festival as well, being both nonprofit, and that the global aspect of our audiences are, I think, becoming so increasingly more key to what we need to keep in mind as we move forward. Yes.
I think we're all thinking about that, but for us, it's great. It's opening up the world to the work that we're doing. That's exciting, and that's a huge opportunity.
Yes. And Jane, did you want to speak with your priorities 2024 moving forward?
Priorities. So I'm in violent agreement here with Bill and Harvey. I think to be relevant, you need to be representative. And it's not about telling people how to think. It's about ensuring that our organisations represent the full gamut of society. And I think we've all done work on our membership over the last few years. We have now set ourselves membership targets and diversified our membership incredibly well. I'm the beneficiary of a significant amount of work that went before me in the retooling of our award system at BAFTA to make it more representative and broader. And what is really interesting is that one of the things we do in our awards now is that we insist our members watch a minimum number of randomly selected films. And what you find is that people don't vote with bias, but we found that they were potentially not watching a broad enough selection of films that are available. And so the work is quite subtle, really, and actually asking our membership to watch more films more broadly outside of their own echo chambers. And then you don't need, this isn't an iron rod. You don't need to tell people how to think. It's just opening up the system, more transparency. I think we've all mentioned that. BAFTA's just gone through a governance review. We're cleaning out the pipework a little bit, becoming more transparent in the way we work. And it's just ongoing work, really. All of this is not just a one-stop shop. It needs to be in your DNA that you need to keep moving towards diversification, you need to work towards better equity and representation, and just be progressive on a perpetual basis.
I love that idea that you're encouraging people to watch films outside their echo chamber. That is a game changer.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, we don't need to tell people what to think. We're not here to fix results.
Just check out this incredible art and then you decide.
Yeah.
But if they're not watching it, they're not going to understand.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
We are going to shift the conversation just a little bit. We're going to move into technology. I know that AI has become a big part of the conversation in our industry recently.
I knew we were going to get to AI. One way or the other, this thing was going to go towards AI.
We will always get to AI. Last year in the industry panel, we had a really wonderful AI panelists, our panel with panelists, talking about, what might be waiting for us in the future. We wanted to start with Harvey because, it always has felt that, music has been always a little ahead of the curve in terms of adopting new technology, innovating with the impact of technology. With the rise of AI, how is that impacting your organization mission or the artists that you support?
Well, that is probably the question of the year. How is AI going to affect music and art and culture? And I don't have the best answer, but I know that it's going to happen. I know that AI is going to be disruptive. I know it's going to have a massive impact on how we do everything, maybe not just in music and film and television, but just in our society. So the Academy is trying to manage that and trying to understand that, to your point, music creators have always been early adapters of technology. We started making instruments out of trees and stuff. So this is how we've adapted. We've gone through sampling, we've gone through digital recording, all the different things that have happened. And this is the next evolution of that. And for, I think, all of us, we agree that technology is going to be a part of what our members do. We need to ensure that that technology has some guardrails around it and that it's used as a tool to amplify creativity, not to replace creativity. And as to your point, as music people doing it earlier, I think it's been the same across the board. People have been using AI in developing games and film and television and post-production techniques. Music is being affected maybe on the creative side a little quicker. People are now starting to do text to track or text to sing, things like that they're real, and they're blowing us away. And I don't know if you all are aware of the fact that you can literally text in a phrase or a mood or another example of an artist that you like, and the computer will generate hundreds and hundreds of full songs in 10 seconds. So that's something that's both scary and interesting. Right?
Don't freak out the audience.
Some of the audience might think that's great.
Exactly.
Some of the audience think that's the worst thing ever. When you think about a computer singing or replacing the vocals or emulating an Aretha Franklin vocal, and it sounds just like Aretha Franklin, but she's singing about, I don't know, circus juggling. You could have a vocalist sing anything, and without their consent or without there being any remuneration for that artist or any approval or the right crediting, these things are happening. So I might sound overly dramatic, but this is something that we have to contend with for all of our members and for all of our constituents.
Absolutely. Like even right now, at TIFF, we've started to receive questions, let's say from producers, artists, organizations. For example, if a film was submitted to TIFF, and let's say the script we learned was generated by AI, would that be eligible for the festival, for example? We haven't had that full situation yet, but we're having conversations inside. So what would be such a policy? We don't have this kind of policy in place,
Well, we had to face that. Sorry to interrupt you, but last year there was submissions that were AI generated that came in, and we knew they were AI generated. So the two problems is, first of all, how do you determine that there is AI participation and creativity? For a script, you would not know unless somebody said, hey, we used AI to make this script. And the same for music at this point. So figuring out a detection system is going to be important. And then figuring out rules as to what part of AI you're going to allow, because I promise you in the films that are at the festival today or the records that we're evaluating right now, there's already AI in them in many ways. So what is going to be the line of demarcation or the threshold that you're going to accept AI? And you're probably going to ask the question, but we figured out a way, and we've been put in this position to have to dictate in our rules and our bylaws how we're going to treat that. And the way that we've done it is AI can be used, and it does not make a submission ineligible. AI can be used, but AI is not going to be awarded. So if AI wrote the song is not eligible for a songwriter category, but it can still be eligible for a performance category. If AI is singing the song, it can't be awarded as a performance category, but it can be awarded as a songwriting or production category. So we've made very specific rules, and you said you haven't addressed it yet, but you can be sure that it's coming really, really quickly.
Yeah, and I think you faced it faster than we have. It's something that we are looking at, considering, not rushing into decisions because we've got to get it right. And the honest answer is we're not sure yet. Also, I'm still kind of profoundly confused by what it can achieve as well. I've seen scripts that, it can be, and that's the thing, that's the key thing, notwithstanding the concerns around copyright and that kind of thing, but like most technological advancements, it's a tool. So how do we get to the better, how do we use it rather than have it use us is the key. I've tried to get it to write a few speeches, and all I can say is they were, 5 career-ending versions later. I decided to, and it writes really shit jokes. And so, I have my doubts. I think humans are pretty good at writing, and they're pretty good at writing jokes. So, I don't want to be too flippant about it, but it is a big matter for us. But the key is not to rush into panic and to really consider what proportion of AI will be acceptable. As Bill said in the green room, our awards are really about supporting the artists, the people, And as long as that remains the main game, then we'll get there. We'll work it out.
The other thing that's important to know, and I said the same thing to members of Congress when I met with them about this, is there's not going to be a perfect solution. And even the guidelines that we put into our awards process, they're going to change. They're going to change in a year or two, most likely. So the idea of really making sure we get it right and making sure we spend the time to study it and understand it and then develop something and then implement it, that could take a long time. So it's my opinion that we get something established that people can be clear about and have as an understanding, and then commit and promise to evolving it, because it's going to move quickly. The AI technology is going to move quickly, and how our members and our creators are using it is going to change from this week to 2 weeks from now, I promise you.
And Anita, I'll just add one thing, and Harvey, I totally agree. And we all do this. We have to look at our awards rules, we iterate. Nothing is fixed. We're constantly, the film industry has been hit with technological disruption from the beginning of our industry. This is another moment where this is happening. But the Academy, we hosted a day-long kind of symposium on AI with our members. And all I will say about that is it was very interesting to see how certain disciplines are embracing AI and others less so. So it's a tool. I think people are learning how to use it. It's not a substitution for an artist, the work of an artist or an individual, but it's in the industry as we speak.
Yes, I think, a lot of the work will come down to guidelines and submission types of policies. I know, for example, in the Academy, let's say for the documentary category, there's guidelines around percentages of recreations, for example.
Exactly.
Yes, and so I think we will move into a space, perhaps we're looking at percentage of AI generated. Where it cannot be AI generated? In some ways, I think it's really interesting how in the EDI space, there's been a lot of shift and greater complexity and nuance in the EDI space, as also related to submissions. And so I do feel like it is an area that is coming very quickly, and we will need to address it in, I think, quite a complex way.
Agreed.
So this is also related on just a larger scale. What have you learned from data as it relates to your show's viewership? And what major or minor changes have you made in either the broadcast or promotion of your big event that you are now seeing results from? And I'll start with Jane.
Oh, thank you. Our film awards and our TV awards are televised by the BBC. And I came into the job just under 2 years ago. And we're all profoundly aware of the future of award shows on TV. And it is important to us, getting our message out, celebrating the craft and the art of the screen arts, and bringing that to a wider audience. The way our film awards in the UK run to 3 hours, and we have a 2-hour time slot on the BBC. And one of the things I wanted to improve a little was we make sure that every award is in the show, which is a bit of an editing feat. And I was talking to Alfonso Cuarón last night, and we were having an argument about the BAFTAs, and I got so exasperated with him. He was just standing there laughing at me, and I got so exasperated with him. I said, okay, well, you come and direct our awards for us, will you? You do the BAFTA awards this year. And then he said, do you know how long I spend in the edit? If you want them delivered in 4 years' time, yes, I'll do it. But other than that, so it is an editing feat. But the nuance, the change that we made was giving the oxygen to all of the categories that aren't in the show in full, so that whatever category you're in, whether it's a craft category or one of the the lead artistic categories, you will be in the show. And we gave a little bit more oxygen to those packages, and that has made a difference to the texture of the show. And we've seen 2 years of increased audiences, which has been brilliant, 15% up year on year. 36 million, views on social. So I think we're in rude health at the moment. We need to keep it that way. The BBC's delighted. We're still seen as relevant and important on the BBC, and they are a great kind of platform for us. So yeah, it's, again, as Bill said, we iterate and we evolve our work. And just being relevant to the public is really, really important. That's part of our mission. Without an audience, what's the point of a film? So yeah, it's always about relevance and entertainment as well. We need to make sure that we continue to entertain. Entertainment and importance and craft are not mutually exclusive. So.
I'll go to you, Bill.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you say, as always. Jane, we're all dealing with this same...
Alfonso doesn't, unfortunately.
I'm staying out of that conversation. I'll start with our museum for a second, because we've been open for almost 3 years. We've had more than 2 million people come through the doors of our museum. More than 50% of our ticket buyers are under the age of 40. You see it in our classic film screenings, you see it throughout our exhibitions. What does this tell us? Young people, and I'll define young as under 40 for us, they're interested in movies, they're interested in content. That gives the Academy, it should give all of us a lot of hope. I see it at this festival. Incredibly diverse and young audience going to movies. So that leads us to the awards. People are interested in the Oscars, they're interested in the Grammys, they're interested in BAFTA. How we deliver that content will continue to evolve. I think we're all thinking about linear TV versus streaming versus what we put on social, but people are engaging with our content around the awards in different ways. It's growing in different ways and perhaps contracting in certain areas, but overall, the number of eyeballs that we have on our show is vast, and we have to constantly think about how we're meeting audiences where they want to engage with our award shows. So I think we have bright futures ahead of us, and I think you will continue, I'll use the word iterate again, you're going to see all of us are thinking about this. Every movie studio is thinking about this. Where are our audiences watching our films? We have to think about our award shows in the same way.
Yes. Harvey, did you want to answer that as well?
Bill answered it. That's exactly what I was going to say. For us, the data is showing that consumers are consuming differently, and we have to be aware of that. So, great point.
Okay, now that they've answered all of the hard questions, we're going to open it up to audience questions, and I see a hand go up right away here. Yes. I'm just going to quickly ask, did everyone hear that? Because I know we don't have a mic. No. I'm actually just, because I'm going to give you, there you go. Yes.
Anita, that was too much for you to repeat. I think we need to start from the beginning.
I'll be more succinct. How do you think about digital platforms like YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok, both in terms of the role that they play as a primary means for younger audiences to consume, but also the creatives that leverage those audiences as a primary way to distribute?
Great question.
That's a really good question. And again, we are coming to terms with this world, absolutely. At BAFTA, we're in a unique situation because we represent the world of film, games, and television. And the games world is really interesting in that regard. I'm going to answer this question in a slightly odd way, because one thing that we're moving into more is looking at the cross-section of film, games, and television, and the various platforms as well. And platforms like Twitch are much more relevant to our games audience. And so there's no one-size-fits-all, even in the world of short-form content and digital platforms. We're seeing different membership groups more active on various platforms. So what's the best version of us in all of these platforms? I don't know yet. How we embrace short form, whether it's something that is becomes part of the award system or not, or whether our output is diversified through those platforms. So there's kind of two questions there. Do we start putting it through the award system, or is it something we just engage with in terms of the content we produce ourselves to communicate with those audiences? So I think it's quite complex, and the honest answer is, again, I don't know where we're going to end up here, but we need to work with and understand not just those platforms, but the audiences and also the creators on those platforms.
And I'll say these are great marketing tools for us, for our museum, for any consumer play, for our award shows. So I think in terms of content for our Academy, we've been focused much more on taking components of our archive or our exhibitions or clips from our award shows, but we're also working with influencers and content creators to interpret the work that we're doing to reach new audiences. And I think you're gonna see a lot of that work growing for us in the future.
I think a good analog, I know the question wasn't for me or for music, but the analog for us might be streaming. When streaming first came out and people weren't releasing CDs or they weren't releasing vinyl or cassettes, they were releasing their music on streaming. And at a certain point, the Academy, or my Academy, wasn't recognizing that as an official release. So at some point, we were fortunate, we thought about it and we said, streaming's gotta count. So let's now not worry about if it's a physical product, but if it's just being released through streaming. So on the film and TV side, at some point, I'm sure there's gonna be a consideration for how creativity is exhibited, how it's displayed, how it's shared. And knowing my peers, these are incredible leaders, they're gonna get it right. But we have to all move quickly and think about what's next and make sure we're paying really close attention to our creators. And where are they? What are they doing? Where are they putting it out? Where are people watching it or listening to it? So we do talk a bit. I know Bill and I have had a lot of communication over the years, and hopefully Jane and I will become great friends as well. But we all have to face these challenges. Where are people gonna put their art, and how are we gonna consider it?
We've got a second question.
Thank you. Hey, Harvey, this question is for you. I'm a filmmaker and songwriter signed to Sony ATV in the US, and you've written some of the most amazing songs that has also helped shape my career as well, too. I wanted to ask you, on my songwriter side, and actually this filmmaking side as well, too, but as a songwriter, how are we gonna compete with AI now? Because it can, as you spoke about before, literally spit out a song in 5 minutes, and I mean, it takes me 10 minutes to write a song sometimes, but the world is just changing. And as we've gone on over time, you've written songs for Chris Brown, Tank, and all these amazing singers, and now people who, no diss to Drake, but people are considering Drake an R&B singer. But how do we shift with this industry right now?
Well, the first question you asked is how am I gonna compete with AI? And I don't think I'm going to compete with AI because I wanna utilize AI and bring it into my process. AI is gonna be able to write full songs, no question about it, and it's gonna make great songs. Jane said they write crappy jokes and crappy maybe scripts, but they write really good songs, and they perform really good songs. It's scary. It's no joke. And if you're making light of the abilities of AI, you are going to get left behind. I promise you. Don't underplay what AI can do. But to your point, it's not gonna be a competition if we get the guide rails set, if we get the boundaries set. And there's some legislation that address the copyright and IP issues and the monetization issues. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. But at the end of the day, I feel really confident in humans. I feel really good about us and what we do because we are creating from here. We're creating from passion, from experience, from life, from hardships, from love. Those are things that, as much as I give credit to AI and computing and technology, those are things that's not going to get. They can fake it. They can try and emulate it, but they cannot have this. We operate from confusion, mistakes, uncertainty, uneasiness. Computers operate from algorithms, consistency, patterns. And they're going to check us. They're going to listen to us. They're going to try and study our music. But I believe, and I'm sure Jane and Bill believe, that human creativity is supreme. Human passion and art and storytelling cannot be topped. So, as opposed to a competition, I see AI as being helpful, but I also see it as being inspirational. And if I know my members and my creators and the members of the respective organizations like I think I do, I know how resilient they are. I know how they're gonna say, oh, AI's over here doing this, I'm gonna go over here and do this. I'm gonna completely change what I'm doing because AI can't do this. I'm gonna create the next great film or game or a record because AI can never do what I can do, and have that confidence and have that inspiration and do something that is unique and something that is our legacy, because the creativity is the human legacy to me.
And remember, it's language-based learning systems. So what does it learn from? It learns from humans. It's what we put into it. You know, it scrapes the internet, which is why it lies so convincingly, because it's scraping data on human error as well as what we get right. So, I agree with Harvey. So, I don't know if I'm a bit kind of naive about this, but yes, it is a tool. I'm very, very, very old, and my first career was in journalism, and I became a journalist just at the point that desktop publishing was invented in about 1820. No, as a journalist, I thought that was it, my career's out. I'd only just started, and I was going to be replaced by a machine. No, it wasn't. It's just made us go faster, and we could do more, and we could research better, and it enabled us to do our jobs better. Now, desktop publishing did end the career of the typesetters. So that is, there are bits of our industry that need to change and adapt, or sometimes certain skills are superseded by technology, but it's not going to supersede you.
And I'm going to move to the third question.
Hi, so first of all, thank you so much for sharing all this. Like, as a avid awards watcher, this is so interesting to know. My question is sort of a two-parter. So the first part, I'm curious how, with the industries evolving, how do your respective organizations make the decisions regarding how the categories need to evolve as well, and both in terms of the number of categories as well as how I'm thinking about how the Oscars started, nominating 10 films for Best Picture, or even how the Best Original Musical Oscar hasn't been awarded in its current form for I think 25 years. So would that be a factor in rethinking that award perhaps? And the second part of it is specifically for Bill. The Oscars for a while now, but particularly in the past few years, seems have morphed from an American award to a much more global phenomenon. With that, does that play any part in how these categories are affected? And again, I guess original musical is a good example for that category as well, because I think, because I know the reason it's not been awarded is because they've never been enough films, but maybe from an international perspective, there might be. Thank you.
Oh, these are great questions. Thank you. And I think you may be aware of this, but we just added a category for casting, which you'll see on the Oscars in next year's, 2 years, 98th Oscars, thank you. I can't remember what year I'm in. I'll use the word iterate again. We have branches of the Academy, by discipline, cinematographers, editors, actors, excuse me, costume designers. Musicians, yes, big branch.
New member.
Every, proud new member, by the way. Every branch, and they consider this every year. Meredith Shea, who's in the audience, is our Chief Membership Industry and Impact Officer. She oversees a team that works with every branch of the Academy. We're constantly looking at awards rules for each award. And we're also thinking about possible new ways to award components of cinema. So casting is the latest. These things will shift and change over time, but our members who work in the industry, who are the most closely tied to the work that's happening in movie making, really bring those ideas to the table. Then our Board of Governors will consider that. So it's something we're constantly thinking about. Our awards are not static, right? And I'm sorry, you had a second part of that question, and I can't remember what that was. Did that answer the whole thing?
The second part was just about the globalization.
Oh, globalization, yes, thanks. Yes, so when Parasite won Best Picture, I think it signaled a real change to the world and to our Academy, that our members are thinking about movies differently. I think it's great for all of us. Our membership is becoming more global. The last few classes, our last class that entered the Academy was over 50% non-US. So we're thinking about our industry from a global perspective. And with that, I think it's actually coming at a time where audiences are viewing films in a different way. One of the, I think, silver linings of the pandemic, if we can say that there was a silver lining, is that people were watching movies at home a lot. They were looking at international cinema, animation, documentaries, shorts very differently because things were available in a way that had not been available to viewers at home before. And I think that actually, for all audiences, really changed how they thought about movies. People aren't afraid of subtitles anymore, which is great. So I think you're going to see more international cinema on the stage at the Oscars. And that, going back to what we spoke about earlier, I think that's very much tied to how our organization is growing and expanding and diversifying. So it's all good.
Yes, you know, we'll add as well, we really noticed the difference at TIFF in terms of there's really increased interest from international films in the international Oscars category. And we're really seeing, you know, directly from companies really excited about the category, really feeling that it has really grown in profile. I think we've also seen where international films have also crossed over from the international Best Picture to Best Picture recently as well.
And across disciplines, across other categories as well.
Yes, so for us as well, we do see the impact of these shifts that you make as awards bodies, and it directly impacts the films actually coming to festivals and thinking about their release strategies moving forward. Yes.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. I believe we can take one more question if there's another question in the audience. Yes, right there.
Hi. So earlier in this conversation, you guys were talking about how each of your companies has addressed like socioeconomic injustices. I know it was talked about like the idea of competing with AI, but how have each of your companies thought about not necessarily competing with AI, but competing with other artists who may have more access to the technology to use that, so kind of competing with other artists that way, either in music or film. I don't know if like same sort of thing, you might not have all the answers, but just wondering if it's been something that's been thought about.
So are you relating that to privilege? Sorry, I've just...
Sort of, like, yes, the socioeconomic injustice that may be argued.
Yes, it's, it's an important point because the access to resource is also an issue here. For instance, we've just upped our bursaries at BAFTA. we've increased them by some margin, because we felt of all of the career entry programs we were running, the bursaries are particularly effective. And what we find is relatively small slugs of money are really impactful in kickstarting a career. And quite often our bursary recipients use that money to buy a computer, a piece of sound kit. Some of them actually use it to get a driving license because they can't get to set. You know, it's a remote location. If you can't, and our public transport systems in disarray in the UK as well. So yeah, so sometimes it's a driving license, sometimes it's a piece of sound kit, sometimes it's a computer. And actually then that person does all the work. They're really talented. They just needed a kickstart and it's an embarrassingly small amount of money sometimes. So yes, you're right. It is about access to resource as well as, but we also found in the research we were doing around the socioeconomic injustice, there's a real confidence barrier as well, of not being the person to step in and say, yes, that's me, I can do this. So it's both material and I think it's a psychological and emotional barrier as well. But yeah, particularly at the career start level, I think it's really important to help people with sometimes just simple, straightforward resource.
The other thing that makes a big difference that we found in the music space is access to information. Yeah. And even opportunities and pathways and chances for people that may not have the financial capabilities to even do an internship, providing somebody with a small stipend so that they can come to a different city to learn from an engineer or a producer or a songwriter, let alone buy the laptop or the microphone. Just having that ability to go understand or get information from somebody else has been a big barrier to entry. So
and also end unpaid internships.
Yeah.
Because they were everywhere and everybody thought they were a great thing until somebody said, you know, most people can't afford an unpaid internship.
Well, a certain group of people could afford to take an unpaid internship, and a lot of people could not, and that was the barrier.
Yeah.
Great, good question. Very important.
Yes. So, you know, with that, I would really urge everybody, you know, as you've heard, you know, not only are these kind of glamorous award shows, but there's so much programming, initiative, advocacy, education, outreach that awards bodies are now providing, engaging with filmmakers, artists, musicians. So, you know, please ask the information, get involved, see how you can participate. And that's really why we wanted to have these three amazing heads of these incredible organizations with us this morning. So thank you so much,
Bill,
Jane,
Thank you.
Harvey.
Thank you.
Thanks.
A little announcement that the Oscars won an Emmy this past week. Yes. Last night.